Picture this. You step out into your garden, coffee in hand, completely ready to admire your prized roses or check on that fresh crop of vegetables. And suddenly, you see it. A swarm of tiny, pear-shaped invaders completely covering the tender new growth of your plants. The leaves are curling, there's this weird sticky mess everywhere, and honestly, panic sets in. You've got an aphid infestation. But wait, before you reach for a bottle of harsh, broad-spectrum chemicals that might actually do more harm than good to your garden's overall ecosystem, let's take a breath. Welcome to today's Explainer, where we're going to walk through the absolute ultimate guide to taking back control of your garden naturally. We're going to turn your yard into a beautifully balanced, resilient environment where aphids simply can't win. Okay, let's dive right into this. Here is our roadmap to building that chemical-free garden. We're going to start by understanding the aphid threat itself, then we'll meet your garden's natural predators, mix up some DIY soaps, explore companion plants, look at smart gardening techniques, and finally learn how to monitor and maintain that control. So Section 1. Understanding the aphid threat, or as they really are, the garden invaders. Because to defeat our enemy, we first have to thoroughly understand them. Aphids are incredibly common, but they have some really fascinating, albeit totally destructive, biological quirks. You can easily spot these tiny, soft-bodied insects. They're only about a 1/16 to an 1/8 of an inch long by looking closely at their rear end. You'll notice this pair of tube-like structures called cornicles. Honestly, they look almost like little exhaust pipes. What's wild is that they actually use these cornicles to secrete a defensive fluid that warns other aphids when predators are nearby. They can be green, yellow, black, brown, or even red, but those little exhaust pipes are an absolute dead giveaway. But here is the most staggering fact about aphids, and this explains why they seem to just appear overnight. Unlike most insects, aphids rarely lay eggs. Instead, they give birth to live young, which are essentially exact clones of their mother. When the weather gets warm, a single adult female can produce up to 80 offspring in a matter of just a week. Think about that. And in 7 to 8 days, those nymphs become adults themselves, and the whole cycle repeats. We are talking about explosive, exponential population growth. Because their numbers explode so quickly, they set off this devastating chain reaction. Armed with these piercing, sucking mouthparts, they target the soft, new plant growth, draining massive amounts of sugary sap. But they actually take in way more sap than they can even use. So the excess is excreted as this clear, sweet, sticky substance called honeydew that drips all over the leaves below. This honeydew then becomes the absolute perfect breeding ground for a black, sooty mold fungus. Between the sap loss and this black mold covering the leaves, the plant's ability to photosynthesize is severely blocked, which leads to yellowing, stunted shoots, and those deformed curled leaves you might have seen. All right, Section 2. Meet the natural predators, the garden cavalry. Now that we know what we're up against, let's pivot to the really empowering solution here: Mother Nature's very own biological warfare. There is a huge variety of insects that view aphids as basically an all-you-can-eat buffet. Lady beetles or ladybugs are voracious aphid hunters. If you buy them commercially, research shows you might actually need around 1,500 lady beetles for just one heavily infested rosebush, often doing 2 applications a week apart. And here is a crucial pro tip. Keep them refrigerated, mist them with water, and only release them at dusk. If you let them out in broad daylight, they're just going to fly away. We also have brown and green lacewings, whose larvae are absolutely brutal predators. Then there are syrphid flies, also known as hoverflies, whose larvae relentlessly feed on aphids. And finally, tiny non-stinging parasitic wasps that literally turn aphids into mummies, which we'll get into a bit more later. But there's a catch. Have you ever noticed ants swarming all over your aphid-infested plants? Well, those ants aren't eating the aphids. They are actually farming them. Ants love that sweet, sticky honeydew the aphids excrete, so they act like mafia bodyguards, fiercely protecting the aphids from our natural assassins like ladybugs and wasps. So to let your good bugs do their job, you have to exclude the ants. A great trick is placing a band of a tacky substance like tangle trap around the base of the plant so the ants literally can't climb up. Moving on to Section 3, DIY soaps and sprays, your kitchen counter solutions. Sometimes an infestation just gets totally out of hand before the natural predators can catch up, and that's when you need a fast-acting intervention. Before you go out and buy expensive chemicals, you can mix up a highly effective insecticidal soap right at home. This recipe comes straight from a horticulture agent at the University of Florida Extension Service. Here's exactly what you do. Take 2.5 tablespoons of liquid dishwashing soap, specifically Dawn or Lemon Joy. Actually, let me emphasize this. Absolutely do not use automatic dishwasher soap. It's way too harsh. Mix that dish soap with 2.5 tablespoons of vegetable oil and blend the whole thing into 1 gallon of warm water. only make what you need for one day's treatment. Because aphids are soft-bodied, this simple kitchen concoction works purely on contact by smothering them. You just have to make sure you get thorough coverage, especially on the underside of the leaves. Now, this is absolutely crucial. You have to be mindful of the weather. Never apply these soaps or horticultural oils to plants that are drought-stressed or when temperatures exceed 90 degrees Fahrenheit. If it's too hot out, the soap and oil mixture can actually cause severe burning to the plant's leaves. And as a general rule of thumb, always test your homemade spray on a small, hidden part of the plant first, just to make sure the plant isn't overly sensitive before you go spraying the whole thing. Let's look at Section 4, Companion Plants and Decoys. This is all about natural garden defense. Beyond spraying, we can actually structure the garden itself to naturally deter aphids and attract those helpful predators we talked about. Companion planting is this amazing, age-old technique where we grow certain plants together for mutual benefit. Take marigolds, for example. Their bright, fragrant blooms act as a fantastic general pest deterrent. Basil offers a natural aromatic shield that can repel flies and mosquitoes. But one of the most strategic pairings you can do is planting alyssum near your most vulnerable crops. Alyssum provides floral resources that specifically attract those adult syrphid flies we mentioned earlier. Those adult flies will come in, lay their eggs on your aphid-infested plants, and when their larvae hatch, they go straight to work eating the aphids. Another genuinely brilliant strategy is using trap crops. Think of a trap crop as a sacrificial decoy. You intentionally plant something that is highly attractive to aphids, specifically to lure them away from your prized vegetables or your delicate ornamentals. By concentrating the pest population on just a few sacrificial plants, you end up saving the rest of your garden, and you do it without a single drop of pesticide. Section 5 is smart gardening techniques for cultivating resilience. Let's look at how your daily gardening habits can either accidentally invite aphids right in or effectively keep them out. These proactive, non-chemical cultural practices are the true foundation of plant health. First off, really watch your fertilizer. Using excessive nitrogen creates a sudden flush of highly succulent, soft green growth. And guess what? That is exactly what aphids love most. It acts like a magnet for them. So instead, try leaning toward slow-release fertilizer products. Also, when you do spot an infestation, your best first step is often just physical removal. Prune out those heavily infested, curled leaves where your contact sprays just can't reach. Better yet, just take your garden hose and spray the plants down with a strong stream of water. It physically knocks the aphids right off, and honestly, a lot of them won't be able to make it back onto the plant. Now here is a surprising and highly effective tip straight from the agricultural world: silver-colored reflective mulches. If you use these around your seedlings and small vegetables, it actually repels invading aphid populations by visually disorienting them. It also significantly reduces the transmission of aphid-borne viruses in susceptible veggies like squash and melon, all while reflecting extra solar energy back up onto the leaves to enhance growth. Just keep in mind, you definitely need to remove this reflective mulch when peak summertime heat hits so you don't accidentally overheat the plants. And that brings us to Section 6, Monitor and Maintain Control. Keeping the peace. We've set up all these great defenses, but now we need to actively scout the perimeter. Because aphids reproduce with such explosive speed, timing is absolutely everything. So I have a question for you. How exactly do you spot an infestation early before that single female turns into thousands of clones taking over your tomato plants? Well, the trick is knowing exactly where to look. Aphids tend to be most prevalent right along the upwind edges of your garden because the wind literally helps carry them in. And once they land, they immediately seek out protection from the elements and predators, which means you almost always find them hiding and clustered on the undersides of new, tender leaves. So make it a habit to walk your garden weekly. Gently turn those leaves over and really inspect the hidden crevices and fresh buds. But while you're inspecting, don't just look for live aphids. You also need to look for signs that your natural predators are already winning the war. If you see aphids that are bronze, tan, and kind of puffed up looking, you've found aphid mummies. This means one of those tiny parasitic wasps we talked about has injected its egg inside the aphid. The wasp larva consumed the aphid from the inside out, pupated, and emerged as an adult through a perfect circular exit hole cut right into the aphid's back. Pretty wild, right? You might also spot aphids that look off-color, flattened, or fuzzy, which just means natural fungal diseases are taking them out. If you see these signs of natural healing, hold off on using even your homemade soap sprays because Mother Nature is already doing the heavy lifting for you. Which leaves us with this final provocative thought. Low to moderate numbers of aphids actually aren't that damaging to a healthy, established plant. In fact, they are a necessary food source for the beneficial insects you absolutely want living in your yard. So ask yourself, are you going to view your garden as a sterile environment where every single bug is treated as an enemy? Or are you going to embrace it as a beautifully balanced living ecosystem? By utilizing natural predators, kitchen-safe soaps, always remembering to test a small leaf first, companion planting, and smart monitoring, you can foster a vibrant, chemical-free garden that basically takes care of itself. Get out there, check the undersides of those leaves, and take back control the natural way. Thanks for tuning in to this explainer.